So in this video, I'm gonna share with you the top 10 reasons people move to New York City. Okay, so this is not an official top 10 list or anything like that. This is a top 10 list that I made up just from experience living and working as a real estate agent here in New York City. So the first reason why people tend to move to New York City, at least that I see, is because of career. I know that's a very common answer and that people always talk about like having the career they always wanted in New York City, but honestly, it's the truth. People definitely move here because there are so many different opportunities in so many different industries. A lot of times when people think of New York City, they think about the finance, they think about performing arts, they think about maybe real estate, but there are so many industries that have communities and opportunities here that I think that doesn't get enough credit, I would say. I would say almost any career has some type of opportunity in New York City. Now, I know it's not every career because there are some industries that just would not thrive in a city, but I do have to say there are a lot of opportunities for most careers out there here in New York City. So the second reason that I think people move to New York City, and this one might surprise you a little bit, is the dating life. I feel like there are a lot of people here who are kind of just like fed up with dating where they are. It might be a small town or another city that they just haven't met the person that is right for them, and they just want to get out there and meet more people, and there's no better place to do that than New York City. I mean, there's literally 8 million people that live in Manhattan alone. So dating in New York City is definitely fun. I haven't dated in many cities around the world, but I do have to say that there is nothing like dating in New York City. The third reason people tend to move to New York City, at least when they're young, is the nightlife. Now, there's so much nightlife here. But I really do think that New York City is one of the greatest places in the world for nightlife. There really is so many different types of clubs, music, neighborhoods that are really represented here in like the nightlife scene. So I do think that it is a little bit different than other cities that might just have like one main strip of nightlife or one main area of nightlife. New York City, it's spread out all over the place, and there are definitely some like hot spots that you can go to that tend to have a little bit more nightlife, but there's really like something for everyone if someone wants to experience that. So another reason that people tend to move to New York City is honestly, a lot of people just tend to be sick of their hometown. And honestly, you might relate to this just when you're watching this video right now. I know that I definitely moved to New York City out of being sick of living in a small town. I was that girl who grew up in a small town my whole life, and I just didn't want to be that girl who went back from college to my small town and just stayed there for the rest of my life. I wanted to make something of myself in New York. So another reason that people tend to move to New York City is that people who are coming to the United States for the first time, like moving to the United States for the first time, New York City tends to be one of the main places that they migrate to. And I'm not saying it's the number one. I actually don't know those stats off the top of my head right now, but I do know that it's always been a place that is one of the main places out of the United States, just because there are so many different communities here. And I can almost guarantee that anyone moving from any country all around the world can probably find a community here of their native country in New York City, somewhere in New York City. Like, that's what a melting pot New York City is. And I love that so much about New York City. It's like, you really feel like you're in a global city, like if that even makes sense. So I do think that so many people, when they're coming to the United States for the first time, if they don't know where to move to, they might feel more comfortable moving to New York City or the surrounding areas just because they know that they can find a community here. Another reason people tend to move to New York City is the theater. I mean, there's no place in the world that has a better theater scene than New York City. I mean, I don't need to tell you that because everybody knows that. Like, people not even from the United States know that New York City is like the theater capital of the world. And you might think that this is kind of like a cop-out answer because it's like so generic and everybody knows like New York City is a theater scene. But at the same time, I actually have clients who refuse to move from New York City because of the theater scene. And they're not in the theater industry, like they don't work in the theater industry, but they literally love living within a few minutes walking distance from some of their favorite Broadway theaters. It's crazy to me because I love theater, don't get me wrong. I love a good Broadway show or off-Broadway show. I mean, there's plenty of great ones out there as well. But I don't know if I would ever not move out of New York City because of theater. But at the same time, I mean, I meet people all the time who literally say that that's one of the reasons that they came to New York City. It's unbelievable, actually. So another reason that people move to New York City is because there really just looking for city life in general. And there is no better place to have that living in a city experience as New York City, at least in my book. But I'm also probably biased because I've never really lived in another city besides New York City, so it is the place where you experience city life. There are so many people who are here just for that reason alone. So another reason that I've seen a lot of people move to New York City is, of course, because of the performing arts scene. Acting, theater, even content creators now have been moving to New York City just because of the opportunities that New York City has in that type of world. So, I mean, it's nothing new that actors and specifically theater performers can make it here in New York City. This is like the place for them to be. But the content creator thing has kind of been a new thing that I've been seeing a major trend where a lot of just content creators are moving from either other cities across the country, world, or even just their kind of like small towns or home states. So I've been seeing a lot of that happening. It's interesting because it's like they don't need to move to New York City to have a career because their career is YouTube or TikTok or whatever type of content creation they do. But at the same time, they just want to live in New York City to create better content and create content with other creators here in New York City. So that's kind of like been a new trend that I've been seeing over the past couple years. And honestly, that's just gonna keep getting bigger and bigger and more popular as we go along. And I don't blame them because I have a New York City channel and New York City is pretty much all I talk about on this channel, so here we go. Another reason why people move to New York City is the community. If you're from a small town, you might feel that lost and misunderstood and like a black sheep in that small town. I know I did, 100%. So I think people like myself back when I was in my hometown are looking for a sense of community and are looking for a place of belonging. And New York City, it's a big place. There's tons of people here, but if you look hard enough, you can find that community. And I truly believe anyone can find a community here. I don't care what your interests are. I don't care what your hobbies are. I don't care what you look like. Anybody can find a community here, anyone. There are people for everyone here. Like, you will find your squad if you look hard enough. The tricky part is figuring out how to find your squad, which I will talk about in other videos. And the last reason why people tend to move to New York City is because honestly, they can't imagine living anywhere else. When I was a young girl living in my small Connecticut hometown, I could not imagine living anywhere else except New York City when I grew up. I did live some other places. During my time. I just couldn't imagine a life where I didn't live in New York City. Like, I just knew I had to be in New York City at some point. So I was gonna do whatever it took to get here. And I guess I did. And even to this day, sometimes it's very, very frustrating to live in New York City. But honestly, at least right now, I can't imagine living anywhere else. So those are some of the top 10 reasons that people tend to move to New York City. At least the top 10 reasons that I found that people are moving to New York City. So you might relate to some of these, all of these, a few of these. So if there are any other reasons of why you find that people tend to move to New York City, share them in the comments because I honestly would love to hear them. Maybe I'll create a follow-up video with some more reasons of why people move to New York City.